Such a great song. I really, like, when I was looking for songs, I thought we got to end something in like empowerment that's like big, right? And I feel like every verse in that song is just basically something that we could probably use, you know? Starting with my favorite one, actually, the one that really makes sense to me the most is I had to live. I had to live. It's in the very first verse. I just want to give. I had to live. I had to live. Like, I just couldn't keep it on anymore. I had to break out of my shell. You know, what's that saying? It's like, sometimes it's more painful to stay small than play big. I'm not exactly sure. I know I'm messing up that quote, but it's that need so much to be bigger than who you are. That need is so much greater than staying small. That's what I had to live. I want to give. And what she's giving, or what she's saying she wants to give, is that energy that is inside. And the reason I love, can I have that slide again for the song? The reason I chose this, when I was talking to Dr. Lori Savage about, different ones, and most of the ones that we saw were about one person, I'm coming out with a lot of power. But when I saw this, it just reminded me a lot of, it looks like all these people, everyone's coming out, right? Everyone's excited, there's confetti, like, I'm coming out. But the real coming out is that light behind, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but it's that light, that energy. That's you coming out. That's the energy that you emit when you know who you are, when you remember who you are. It's that energy that goes out into the world. And everyone that comes across that energy is just as excited as all these people are, because they see in you, in that energy, they see it in themselves. They often say when you are who you are, you give permission for somebody else to be who they are. This is exactly that. Your energy is so bright and so big that everybody understands who they are. When you know who you are, you know who everybody else is. I wrote a piece today, or not today, for the blog about empowerment. And for me, the play on words on empowerment is I am empowerment. That I am empowerment of who I am. When I know who I am, I know exactly who everybody else is too. And I have that feeling of just allowing me to see me and you, to see you and me, and together having that energy to just release out into the world, right? And it's in that release, in that power, that you have the empowerment, the I am empowerment. And much to what Thor said, it's not just about the self. It's about everybody else. So when you are in that empowerment, when you are in your I am empowerment, you now give others permission to also be the same. So when she says, I just had to live, she didn't say, I'm going to live. She said, I had to live. Do you feel that way sometimes? Like, I just have to live. I have to do this. And it's that have to that is like, it's beyond just the self for the small s, the small t, the small l, the small whatever your initial is. We're talking about the grandiose of it, right? I had to live. I had that desire to live. And I want to give. I want to give that energy out into the world. So, do you guys remember what our theme for the year is? Action. And do you remember what the affirmation was? Well, I have it for you, just in case. Can we have that slide? I take action by living my greatest life out loud. And I feel like we just did that. We did that when we said the verse of empowerment, the affirmation for empowerment. We all got in, living our greatest life, living that greatest moment out loud. And when we were standing here as Carol and Will and Emma were belting out the song, we were out loud with the song, with coming out, with being who we are, right? That's the action that we want to take. And so I want to ask you, now that we're almost 9 months in, or really 9 months into a theme of action, are you living your life out loud? Do you feel like there is an out loud version to you? I see Andrea saying yes, and I know that's true because I see it, and I heard it a couple of weeks ago out here. And so now I ask you to ask yourself, am I living this theme? I mean, we're in a month of empowerment, having that power, that I am power, the power that is within, and propelling that forward into the world. Am I living in action? Now, what I want to remind you is action doesn't have to be this bold, immense thing that is out there. What I mentioned in the blog is part of action is faith. Having faith in knowing who you are. And I know I've called a lot of practitioners before when I don't know who I am, and I need that faith. And I like to quote a verse from the Bible, which is, with faith the size of a mustard seed, and I've said it here before, with faith the size of a mustard seed, I can move mountains. And sometimes I need that grain of faith to know exactly who I am. And that grain of faith is reaching out to somebody to remind me of who I am. With that love only that they give to me, to remind me of who I am able to have faith. And that faith is action. Aaron, I love that you're shaking your head. You know that. Like that faith of like, I may not know the next steps. I may not know what to do, but I have faith the size of a mustard seed that it will come. Whatever it is that needs to come will come. That in itself is an action to take. When I was finishing my doctorate, and I actually ended up asking for an extension because I was, like I said earlier, like, you give me boundaries and I'll push them. You give me a structure, I'll knock it down. But when you tell me that I'm going to do this on my own, it's almost paralyzing to me. Don't ask me why. I would think that I'd be excited, which I generally am, but I also get in this moment of like, oh my gosh, what if I don't do it right? Or I have all these other things that I want to do, and then I just drive myself a little bit nuts until I finally have to spiritually slap myself like I did this morning and kind of go, you got this. You have the I am power behind that I am. And what is the I am power? It is the power of God. It is that Christ consciousness, as we talked about earlier. It is that power of Buddha, it's that Zen knowing, the power of who I am. So once I finally allowed myself to surrender into the process, into that knowing of who I am, I was able to finish my doctorate. And it was a very humbling experience. So the action that I had to take is really just the surrender into the faith, into that knowing. And it, like I said, the actions don't have to be immense. Sometimes that faith, and it doesn't have to be this big old faith. It just has to be faith. It has to be knowing. It has to be allowing yourself to be in the space that you are, to open up, to have the power to open up and allow yourself to be. So when I finally finished my doctorate, and it was, at first I decided to do a totally different project. I didn't have another book inside of me. Like I had to write one for ministerial, and it just seemed like such a daunting task. So I thought, you know what I'd really like to do in order to get my doctorate is I'd like to really spell out, do a pitch deck for an 8-episode docuseries about the marriage of spirituality and science. And I'll shoot the pilot. That's what I'm going to do. And thank God for my children, too, because they really helped me out because I'm not the best. My son does editing, and he's got an amazing camera. So he was very excited to help me, but also, like, give me some direction, Mom. What are we doing, And, eventually when we got it all together and finished it up and finished the product, I realized that I had to go outside myself and not just have it be me, because I've decided to go out into the world. I've decided to share this project, ask people to be a part of this project, bring their wisdom into it, and I couldn't control everything. So I had to just release, allow, let go, give myself the space, and then find that I am power from there, from that space. And then take action. And like I said, sometimes it's just as small as having the faith of a mustard seed. And sometimes it's knowing who you are. And then sometimes it's taking that action. The title of my talk today is Time to Boss Up. Don't you love that? It's like the kids' version of put your big person pants on. Time to boss up. It's all on you. There's nobody else. There's nothing else outside of you. I was reading an article in Psychology Today. Don't ask me why, but I did. And it was actually very interesting. They talk about the locus of control. That's locus, L-O-C-U-S, locus of control, which means locus is the location of a perceived abstract. So the locus of control, the locus of power. And so in Psychology Today, they were talking about the locus of control that people have, and it's a range. Sometimes there's an internal locus of control, and sometimes there's an external locus of control. And some people favor one more the other, but again, it's a spectrum. of it. And it helped me to understand, again, on a different level of what it is that we're talking about, right? Are we living from within? Are we living from us being the one in charge, being first cause? Or are we living through the external? Is the external dictating what we do, how we do, what we say? Are we victim to others? Or sometimes are we a victim to ourselves? You know, we have to make that choice. Dr. Lori Savage last week, and if you haven't seen her talk, it was really incredible. She touched upon the difference between transformation and change. And how I saw this after reading the article was very interesting, because the way she described change, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with change. I think change is amazing. I thrive on change, quite honestly. But change comes from the external. Transformation comes from the internal. So trying to figure out, where are you being informed? Is it the internal that's transforming you, or is it the external that's changing you? But either way, as I said earlier, your consciousness is growing. It's never the same. In this moment, my consciousness is different than it was when we started today. And so is yours, quite honestly, whether you choose to believe it or not, because so much has happened. Songs have been sung, people have clapped, there's been laughter, there's been a lot, happening, and that changes, even in a small level. When I first lost weight, 5 years ago, I think it was, however long ago it was, I was able to sort the difference between that type of change or that type of transformation. First, it was a mental transformation to know that I could actually do it. And I've been up here to talk about that. I had to have a real mental transformation with myself to know who I am, to see myself who I am, physically and mentally. And when I was able to do that, I was able to release what no longer served me, both in mind and body. And the interesting part that I found, and again, this was a conversation that I had with Eric the other day, the interesting thing that I found about that is that change, that transformation was a visible one, right? So I could see if I lost 10 pounds. I might not be able to see 1 pound, but I could see 10 pounds. And it was a measurable loss, right? At the very end of it all, it was 40 pounds, and it was a measurable loss. And sometimes we forget that when we can't see a measurable loss, that nothing is happening, right? So, like even today with the song Diana Ross saying, I had to live, meaning I had to break out of my shell, as she says. And when you break out of your shell doing something different, you'd never stop to look back to see the steps that you've taken to get where you are. Now, it was easy for me to see when I was losing weight that I was losing weight. But it wasn't easy for me to see how much I'd accomplished to get my doctorate, because it was all perception. I had nothing tangible except for maybe my ministerial degree, but I didn't have the little tangible things that I could really point to. And I think that's important for all of us, because we stay stuck in what we haven't done and forget to celebrate what we have done. And I think the celebration brings forth that energy that allows us to continue to move through that energy. So while we're always going to be changing, we're always going to be transforming, we're always going to be wanting for something new, right? That's part of life. Even, when people retire, and what do? They travel or garden or do something that's creative. It's rarely just, great life, I'm done, and let me just sit here and watch the lilies grow, It's always something, a new change, a new experience, a new life coming forth. So, they always say it's not the destination, it's the journey. But there's never a destination, really. There's little peaks to get to, little stopovers. Because the destination is going to be a transition into something else, right? So while we're here, allowing ourselves to celebrate those moments that are not measurable, but we have to sit back and know that they are, taking that action as well. And sometimes it's the action of just going, you know what? I got up this morning and I meditated. A couple weeks ago, Andrea talked about 3 things that she gave us to do, Dr. Andrea. One was meditate. The other one was write your journal. And the third one was to walk in nature. I think the fourth one was to roar too, if I recall correctly. It was to roar, to really kind of get in that present moment of who you are, to allow yourself to see, you know. I think when you journal, you realize how much you are actually accomplishing, how much you are actually growing, how much your mind is actually changing, how much your consciousness is being affected and affecting others. And last week, Dr. James talked about the 3 processes, right? I think the first one was to recognize your dream. The second one was to listen to where your dream is taking you. And the third one was to have the courage to follow that. And I think he specifically said, have the courage to move from here to your dream. This is the comfort. This is the unknown, which might be a little uncomfortable. But when you have the courage to move from here to there, you're walking in your faith. You're moving your faith forward, not knowing what those steps are going to take you to get to what it is, but having the courage to follow through because you've listened, because you've been introspective, and I'm going to give you one last thing this month, is to celebrate. Celebrate, 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 celebrate. Celebrate every one of your accomplishments, no matter what they are, because I promise you they're there. They may not be as visible as losing weight, but they are there. They are visible as your own consciousness. When you write, when you meditate, when you see, when you celebrate who you are, celebrate in such an amazing way. It changes your own energy, doesn't it? Don't you feel that? I mean, even listening to the song today, didn't that stir up that just excitement? Or doing the affirmation that one time, uplifting your energy. So I invite you all to celebrate, to take that as your action, because now you know. Tony Robbins says this: you see, in life, lots of people know what to do, but few people actually do what they know. Knowing is not enough. You must take action. And taking action can be believing, having the faith the size of a mustard seed. Taking action can be meditating, having the courage to move to your dream. Taking action can be celebrating, but take action. This year is a year of action. Let's take the action to move forward. Let's take the action to know where we've been, know where we are, and see where we're going, and continue and have the courage to move forward, to be empowered, to have the I am power of knowing exactly who you are. Namaste. Thank you.